because and they often would say, well, I didn't commit that murder, I didn't do this, I didn't steal, and all that kind of thing, right? Which is true. But if you're the recipients of all of that, then there's an obligation to do something about it. So personal guilt, no, but personal action, yes.
No, I definitely agree because when I was about 13, I was charged and convicted for receiving stolen goods. Didn't know it was stolen, but I received it,
Right.
and I was charged and placed on probation for it, which is crazy, right? So those things make sense.
Right.
If it happens to us, it should happen to others, right?
Right.
But I guess my question would be, going forward, they are the recipients. How is it then that they can repair? We heard a lot about reparations.
Yeah.
How is it in your idea, your philosophy, or the organization CURB's philosophy, that reparations can be received by us?
Okay. Well, that becomes a very tricky question because people throw things like, well, who should get it, and et cetera, et cetera. We've made links with the Caribbean's Reparations Committee, and they don't talk about it sort of in a personal sense. They don't say, okay, well, Kellen Lewis has to get $1 million. They say things like, okay, say, for instance, the countries like Jamaica, et cetera, have millions in debt. Part of the reparations package could be the cancellation of that debt, right? And so things like access to pharmaceuticals, not having to pay market prices. So it's things like that that they talk about as opposed to individual reparations. But I think your question was more directed at what the individual can do, the ones who benefited from it. Well, they kind of have to find their own way and there are things that folk have done. Like I know there are persons who have given persons of family scholarships from the family, right? They feel that is a part of their reparations. Obviously, there are things that corporate side could do. They can look at the hiring practices, the pay practices, and all those things to make sure that they are doing things that promote racial justice, to correct the injustices of the past. So there are certain things that they can do, but we have sort of not pinpointed this personal reparations. We've looked at it more from a collective point of view. So, Bermuda has, 3.5 billion debt. Part of the reparations could be the erasing of that debt. So that's how we look at it. And then if you have that, then if government uses the funds that it would have paid towards the debt, then they can use that to build those who have historically not benefited from the injustices of the past. So if they can put that money to use there, so in education, child care, all of those things, housing, so that the people, the basic needs are met, that's a form of reparations.
Do you think that, because we were touching on personal reparations as opposed to corporate sector giving reparations and figuring out ways in which they can repair things from the past. Do you think that it would be fair for someone to say, if you have a corporation or a big business that was founded on the back of slavery or whatever the case is, for them to then do something like inclusion, because that's what it sounds like. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Meaning, okay, we're gonna hire a certain amount of black people in this field. We're gonna pay them a certain amount of money, but either way, they're kind of still benefiting, because if they give you a job, you're still working for them to make their company money. So some people might argue, well, is that a reparation? How do you feel about that?
Well, I think because we are where we are, you have to start somewhere. So, for instance, the Anglican Church have benefited from the slave trade. They came out, I think, about a decade ago with an apology. And, apology is one thing, but how, as you asked, how do you repair that damage? And so they thought, because they own a lot of property in town, I don't know if you're aware of it, they own a lot of property in town, so they're still receiving funds from, past injustices. So they announced that they were going to have a scholarship program, and I was at the time pursuing a PhD, and I thought, okay, I can get funds. So I made an appointment to go see them just to test it out. And I went in and everything, and the guy said to me, "Oh, well, this is only for our members." Well, they didn't say that. And so, if you're going to have a policy of reparations, you can't really just have it inclusive to those who are members, because there are obviously a lot of people who are not part of your faith, and the funds that you got came from an injustice that was imparted on all of people, of black people. It was kind of didn't go far enough. So you're right. Did they still benefit, and the organizations have still benefited, but we are still at the point of trying to get them to realize that there has to be some reparations, and once you acknowledge that, now we can push for other things. But we're still at the stage of there's still, many of them still at the stage of denial, and don't want to do it. That's why you have countries don't want to give an apology, because I think in a legal sense, if you apologize, there's an admission of guilt, and therefore then you have to turn around and do something about it. The church has apologized, which is a admission of guilt, and therefore there's an obligation to do something about it. And so we should be at the table to determine the terms by which it's done. So I think you're right. If you're still benefiting, yeah, but I think for us, from a point of view where we've gone from denial to getting them to acknowledge it, then we can continue on that journey. It's not going to be a marathon. It's going to be, it's not going to be a 100-meter dash. It's going to be a more like a marathon. So we're going to have to keep on the road, but at least we're making starts.